Everyone in this room is at a different place, in a different stage of consciousness. Everyone is working on something different. So what brings us together? Well, this morning what brings us together is Mary, because no matter what we think is going on in our lives, and no matter where we are, we've got some aspect of our beingness that is embodied in her that we can apply. But you might right now be working on being assertive and standing up for yourself, and you might be working on surrendering and letting go and keeping quiet, and you might be working on taking a firm spiritual step and making up your mind what you want. You might be moving into mystery of I don't know and just letting go. And how do I give a talk on that? But we have something in common, and it's Christmas. And there are certain principles that are greater than the circumstantial elements of our spiritual growth that we can utilize to move us. There are no problems in life. I had a woman come up to me at after the last service and first time here, and she said, "Oh, I felt like you were talking just to me. How did you know?" And I said, "There are only about 4 problems in life, and I got about a 1 in 4 chance of hitting it." But how do you know? We have that one thing in common, and that one thing is that we're all growing souls. I am a soul in evolution. Together? I am a soul in evolution. And Christmas is for me. Together? And Christmas is for me. It's for you. You are a soul in evolution. And as you get quiet, and as you start to absorb Christmas and start letting it move on you and work with you, if you realize that problem you thought you had is not a problem, it is a movement of your soul. I have no problems, I only have the movement of my soul. Together? I have no problems, I only have the movement of my soul. So there is no problem, there is just the movement in consciousness, the movement in energy, the movement in awareness, the opening up to intuition. And Mary represents all of that because, well, what happened to her? She gave birth. What are you giving birth to? What are you giving birth to? Ask yourself the question, what is my soul calling me to do? What is my soul calling forth in me? It may not be something tangible. What is your soul calling forth in you? What is your soul calling forth? What are the qualities? What are the attitudes? What kind of things are there for you? And then ask, when you're facing a problem, what is mine to do here? What is my soul calling forth in this situation? So here she is, and we've got to understand that if we're going to give birth to something new in our lives, we've got to get out of the familiar and move into the unfamiliar, out of the known and move into the mysterious. She was from Nazareth. Why in the world could they not have had the birth there? They had an extended family, they had home births, they had all the help that they could need. People spoke in their language and their accent because it was a different country. Galilee was considered a foreign land. You need, however, to travel to a far country in consciousness in order to move to the place in your consciousness where you can take in this great essence, this energy, and to move with your consciousness. So what is it? What is it in your life? What is it you need to do? Right now, just take a moment and ask, what is mine to do? What is my soul calling me to do? And realize that whatever that is, it isn't what you think it is. It isn't the familiar. It isn't the known. It isn't the thing that you thought you were supposed to do. She had to move to a far country to give this birth because you can never move in consciousness and give birth to something new unless you have traveled to a new place in your beingness. And where is that place for you? Where is that place for you? Where is your Bethlehem? Well, not only was it a Bethlehem, but she had to move from the inn into the stable. What did you say? Well, there's no room for them in the inn. I'm going to read it to you. I'm going to read this. Now, in the 6th month, the angel Gabriel was sent by God to a city in Galilee named Nazareth, and to a virgin betrothed to a man whose name was Joseph of the house of David. The virgin's name was Mary, and having come in, the angel said to her, "Rejoice, highly favored one, the Lord is with you. Blessed are you among women." And then from Luke, it came to pass in those days that a decree went out from Caesar Augustus that all the world should be registered for a tax. All went to be registered, everyone to his own city. Joseph went from Galilee, out of the city of Nazareth in Judea, to the city of David called Bethlehem, because he was of that house and lineage of David, to be registered with Mary, his betrothed wife, who was with child. And so it was, while they were there, the days were completed for her to be delivered. And she brought forth her firstborn son, and wrapped him in swaddling clothes, and laid him in a manger, because there was no room for them in the inn. There's a lot in there. There's a made-for-TV movie for that. There's reality shows in there, because, first of all, it was unfair. It was unfair. There's a tax. It was an unfair tax. The brutal emperor is saying, you've got to uproot yourself, everybody. They didn't know anybody in Bethlehem. Yeah, where are your ancestors from? You know, mine are from Bouzeville, France. Yes, Bouzeville, France. And by way of Quebec City. And I'm supposed to go back there just because that's where they're from? I don't know anybody there. I don't speak their language. It's an unfamiliar world. So you say, what is the unfamiliar territory? And so what do you have to do? You've got to open up to your intuition. You've got to be innocent like Mary. You've got to be intuitive like Mary. You've got to be surrendered like Mary. Okay, innocent. Innocent. Now, here's a little nerd talk like I always give, but we think, oh, she's betrothed. It says she's betrothed. You know what that means, right? You know that means that she's engaged. No, it doesn't mean she was engaged. There were 3 states to marriage. The first was engagement, the second was betrothal, and the third was marriage. It was very different than ours. You could be engaged at the age of 3 because they had arranged marriages. But the year, 1 year before you're supposed to get married, which in most cases for a woman was 13, 14, at the latest 15 years old. 1 year before, they had a trial marriage that was chaperoned called a betrothal. And during that betrothal, unlike some cultures, they could back out. And boy, did Joseph have a reason to back out. Because she comes to him with this story about some Holy Spirit, and she's pregnant. And he knew very well what really happened, and he was a good man. He was a decent man. He had compassion on her. He probably, cared very much for her, and the decent thing to do was to put her away privily, which is to basically say, you go somewhere in your shame and you just have that baby. Now, where in your life have you been in a situation where you took your spiritual step? You did what you were supposed to do. You followed your guidance, and not everybody understood. That's what this story is about. Do you think that when you take your spiritual step, everybody's going to go? Sometimes they do, and sometimes they don't, and sometimes some people do, and some people don't. But the purpose of this story is to tell you it's okay when they don't, and because there's even an aspect of you, because everybody in the Christmas story is a part of you, that does the same thing, that's looking back at that part of you that wants to take a spiritual step and says, no, you don't. No way. There's even an aspect of you that's like Herod and wants to put it to death. I mean, there's an aspect of us that fights this spiritual growth. So realize that you've got to nurture. You've got to have that quality of Mary. What does she have? She's young. She's young and innocent. A naive, innocent, natural mysticism. A practical mysticism. Children don't know any better. They don't know that this isn't a universe of wonder, of magic, of joy. What did Einstein say? He either believed that this is a friendly universe or an unfriendly universe. There's only those 2 choices, and for me, I'm going to believe it's a friendly universe. What kind of universe do you believe in? Children believe that it's a friendly universe. The Youth of Unity used to put on a summer camp in Southern California, and I was the adult in charge of the medical side of it, because I'd had some training in that. And so I was there, and I got to witness 2 spiritual healings happening almost simultaneously. The first was they brought a 7-year-old girl there, and she had twisted her ankle terribly, and one ankle was 3 times the size of the other, at least double. And they had to carry her because she couldn't even support a little bit of weight on it, and they set her on the cot. And I was talking to her, and just at that moment, somebody rushed in and said, there's a boy that hit his head. We think he's really injured. He's got to go to the hospital. And I was ready to go, and I realized I better say something to the girl. I said, just tell your ankle, shrink ankle. She goes, shrink ankle. I said, no, you can say it silently. So she said, So there she was. And I went to one of the cabins, and what had happened is that a boy who was about 10 had been scared by another boy. The boy in the lower bunk had found a dead, dried up bug that was pretty big and scary, and he thrust it in the face of the boy in the top bunk, who stood up as fast as he could and hit his head. Well, his face, one half of his face, and the opposite side of this big knot was drooping like this. And he was talking like this, and he couldn't stand up. They had to carry him to the car, and just as we were ready to drive away to the nearest hospital, which was an hour away. You don't call an ambulance at a time like that, because you're going to beat the ambulance if you drive fast enough, and I did. But just as we were ready to leave, I realized, oh, there was that little girl, and I wasn't going to leave her there. So I ran to the little girl, and I said, how are you doing? And she said, all better. And she got down and like this and started running up. I said, wait, come back. And I looked, and her ankles were exactly the same. She needed no further treatment. Well, we drove to the hospital, and I was loaded for bear, because some miracle just happened. So I told the kids the story of it. I said, let's do some affirmations. So we did some affirmations and visualization of light, and we did it all the way to the hospital. Now, they called ahead, so they were waiting for us. And they had the gurney there, and they brought him in, and they looked at him initially, and they started taking other patients ahead of him. I said, what are you doing? They said, well, we have to take people in the order of their need. I said, and I tried to describe it, and they looked at me like I was crazy. I said, that can't be. We don't see any injury here. And there was somebody who had a black widow spider bite. I mean, they had some serious stuff that they were dealing with. And when they looked at him, he had absolutely nothing wrong with him. We had an hour to do that prayer treatment. Now, it's because of that childlike wonder, that openness. But that kid isn't gone in you. That child isn't gone in you. That child's in there. Do you play? Do you know how to play? Do you know how to play? You know, when I went through one of the most tragic experiences of my life, my dad had died, I went through a divorce, this was 30-something years ago, and the first number one thing I was guided to do in meditation was learn how to play. Learn how to play. So I learned how to ski, I learned how to play tennis, I learned how to play golf. I was lousy at all of them except for skiing. So I dropped them all, but I learned how to play. And I'm to have that open, childlike wonder. Take that part of you, the playful part of yourself. Open up to God. And I open up to God. Together, I open up to God. That is that innocence, that is that naive, childlike wonder, that spirit that is coming forth in you, that is ready to meet that situation. Now, in that spirit, they had to move. They had to move from the familiar to the unfamiliar. Why couldn't they have the birth in Nazareth? Because everything was too familiar. Have you ever noticed that sometimes you need to have something unfamiliar around you in order to see things differently? You know, I'm so grateful that I'm married to Lynn, because I had my life locked up, and there was I swallowed the key, and I had everything locked up tight, and she came in with new energy, she'd say something to me that was so true, and I'd say, no, that can't be true. I know better. You know, and it took, something new in your life, something new. Open up. And it may seem like a far country. It may seem, you're in Bethlehem, wait a minute. How come I can't be back in Nazareth? Why am I in this unfamiliar situation? It's because you've got to be open to something new. Now, she was open to it because of something called intuition. Both Mary and Joseph received intuitive guidance that led them. Joseph accepted Mary because she had told him the truth and he didn't believe her. So at night, he received a dream and he was visited and told, you better believe her. And oh, by the way, kid's name is Jesus. And he accepted it. Why did Joseph receive his guidance at night in a dream? Why did Mary receive it full-blown in the daytime? Because she was more open. She was more flexible. She was less in her intellect. I know so many people who live in their intellect so much that they can't see a thing. Have a hard time with the Christmas story. Have a hard time with the things of wonder and mystery. I'm going to tell something. I wrote an article once a few years ago for Unity magazine about the Bethlehem story, and it was a good article. And they thought so too, and they were going to print it, but they said, could you please remove all references to Bethlehem and shepherds, because the best scholarship says that didn't happen. And we wrote an article about it a year and a half ago that said something different. And it's like, wait a minute. Open up your heart. Who cares what the literal story was? It may have happened that way. It may not have happened that way. I remember a Native American medicine man saying, I don't know whether it happened this way or not, but I know that this story is true. And there are things of the heart. Open up your heart, because the things of the heart are more real than the things of the physicality. The things of the spirit are more real than the things of the literal. And you can never move your soul at the level of the literal, of the intellect, of the rational mind. Myrtle Fillmore said, the intellect reasons, but the intuition knows. And she and Charles Fillmore were very much like Mary and Joseph, in that Myrtle Fillmore early on would just get her guidance. She had 2 miraculous healings of terminal illnesses, and she was always getting these wonderful teachings. Charles, on the other hand, seeing her change and all the benefit that she received, started to grudgingly sit in silence and meditate. And he said he didn't feel a thing for 8 months. Nothing happened. And he sat for 40 minutes a day. He told people, it will never happen that way to you because nobody has a head as hard as mine. But he said something did happen. At night, he would have dreams. He would receive dreams, and he started to see a new world. He started to get messages in dreams, and he found them to be reliable. And the reason why, he said, was because that was the only time he was open. And so when you do this spiritual work, when you open up to a possibility, you'll get the guidance at the level that you need to get it. And for Joseph, it was at night while he was asleep, and he was open to that. So how do you cultivate intuition? You know, we wonder. I always talk about intuition. People say, well, how do I know it's really intuition? You know, people don't like this, but I say, you know, how do you know whether it's God or gas? What is that rumbling inside of me? You know, I don't know whether it's really intuition or my ego. But I say it anyway. There's something that I always like to give tools. I always like to give methods, because sometimes we need that. And right outside of fellowship, I've got something called the question and answer process. It's a journaling process. You can do that, and you create a space of I don't know. You ask a question, you go into I don't know. What does that do? That creates a womb-like space of possibility, an open space into which your answer can come. And you may find that by working with this, you'll get some answers. Here's another nerd fact. Out in the limitless interstellar space in the farthest reaches where there's absolutely nothing, tremendous activity is going on. It's called the zero-point energy, and all the physicists now say that where there is nothing but a vacuum in space, subatomic particles are infinitely blipping in and out of reality and existence. If you move into the silence of your being, it is a dynamic silence. Yeah, I remember I read a meditation book when I was a kid, when I first was trying to learn how to meditate. And I remember the guy saying, you must totally silence your mind and have no thoughts at all. I'm 62 and I'm still working on that. But I've had experiences where I have total silence, but it happens after I've had my meditation. People could do that. This guy who wrote the book, maybe he could do it. But, don't put that on yourself. Open up. It's a dynamic silence, a dynamic space. On Tuesday nights at 6 o'clock, we go into dynamic silence as a group. And we experience that as a group in our Tuesday night silent meditation. But where in your life, even if this kind of method is not for you, where in your life can you open up a space? Go into I don't know. Create a possibility into which something good can happen. But you've got to be willing to let go of the old and familiar for the new. And I'm sharing this in honor of my in-laws who are here this morning. My mother-in-law and I were driving with my then 2-year-old daughter, Rosalie, in the baby seat in the back. And we were driving along, and I was stopped for gas, and I was in my miracle car. And I shared the story of how I prayed, and it was the one thing that I saw in the newspaper. You've heard that story. And this was now about 4 years later, and the car was starting to have some problems. And I said to my mother-in-law as I was pumping gas, I know I'm supposed to let go of this car and get a new car, but I don't want to. I don't want to let go of this car. I'm going to hold on to it. And she looked at me and she said, now, Greg, be careful, because you know what happens when you do that. Do you know what I'm talking about? When you're unwilling, you get guidance. You're unwilling to let go. And I got the guidance and meditation to let go of my car, and I wouldn't do it. Less than 5 minutes later, a woman ran a red light and totaled my car. But not only that, the car T-boned us right where Rosalie was sitting. And, you know, and Linda told me yesterday when it happened, she said, you got real quiet, and I knew you were kind of doing something with spirit. Well, actually, I was thinking, what am I going to say to Rosalie? Because I didn't want her to be traumatized by this. So I turned around and said the thing that we always said to her as she fell down because she was learning how to walk. And anytime she fell down, we'd go, boom! And then she'd laugh rather than cry. So I turned around and I went, boom! Wasn't that great? And she starts laughing, you know. And when I talk to her about it now, she still remembers it. She says, all I remember about it is that it was a wonderful experience. It was a wonderful experience. It was just, wow, wasn't that exciting? Anyway, what happened though, that was the end of the story. I figured, I'm going to get a new car out of this, right? But it wasn't that simple. I got a call from the claims agent for her insurance company. He said, look, we want you to know that we work for her. We are her insurance company, so we have to tell you this, but I want you to understand the circumstances. He said, she said in her report that she didn't see you when she ran the red light, but she knew you were speeding. So we want you to know that that is her statement, and we have to, by law, investigate it. It will take a while, but we're going to rent you a car. It may take a while. It took many more weeks because she fought it and fought it and fought it. And before finally, the same guy made the final decision. They must have had a little leeway because they gave me thousands of dollars more than my car was worth, and I went out and got a Lexus. Now, it's not about tangible things. Why do I tell these tangible stories about physical things when it's about spiritual growth? Because I can't really talk about the abstract whatever. I got to talk about something. And these are demonstrations or outformings of something that is much deeper and more profound than any physical outcome. But you've got to be willing to let go of the old in order to embrace the new. You know, I could just imagine Joseph saying, this is so inconvenient, it's so unfair. Why do we have to leave Nazareth? Why can't we just do this thing in Bethlehem? Why do we have to? And then they're at the inn. And what is an inn? It's a bar. They're, you know, and everybody was in town for the census, for the tax. So they were doing a booming business. And they said, we don't have time for a birth. You get out of here. Go back there with the animals. Go back there and give birth in the stable, in the straw, with all of the animal stuff. And, you know, it seems so unfair, but, you know, the very unfair thing, the thing that feels like it's taking you out of your familiar zone and comfort zone into the far country may well be the very condition you need for the birth to take place in you, both physically and in terms of attitudes. You know, your idea of God. What is your limiting idea of God? What did that person teach you as a child? What have you held on to? Are you willing to let it go and let Spirit itself move through you and teach you and let you move into a far country of unfamiliar something to have the real birth take place, not that intellectual concept that you're so locked down and involved with. You know, I remember when I was in the Youth of Unity and I just graduated and I was 19 and I didn't want to leave it. So I said to the person in charge of the region, well, can I just come to the rally? And he said, you can come for 10 minutes once. 10 minutes once. This had been my whole life. It's the most important thing in my life. What an unfair and mean thing for him to say. And then, because I did go for 10 minutes once and left, I started to explore. And I got invited to be in a band. And then I got involved in a meditation group. And I started learning and exploring deep teachings and wonderful things because there was no room for me in the inn. Look in your life. Where is there no room for you in the inn? Where is the commerce of life so bustling and so busy that there's no space for you? You've got to go out to the stable, to the place that looks so unfamiliar. But what happened there? The birth. What happened there? Joy to the world. Couldn't have happened with all the clinking glasses and all the stuff going on in the end. It couldn't have happened. There had to be a shift. There has to be a shift in your consciousness. It's waiting for you right now. You have to be willing to travel from Nazareth to Bethlehem, from the inn to the stable. You have to be willing to move out of the addictive need to get everybody to approve of your spiritual step. You know, people are not going to understand. They're not going to approve. It's part of the deal. You just have to let it go. You just got to let it go and realize that you're the one. You're the one who has to accept this. You're the one who has to move with it. So right now, let's move into a time of, again, absorbing Christmas. And it just is all around us, from the most mundane commercial lights and colors of Christmas carols and all the tinsel, to the most holy and sacred, spiritual, exalted experience. It's all Christmas, and we absorb it all. We are multidimensional beings, so we have all this to absorb. Just imagine as if you were just taking it in and absorbing it into your being like a sponge. Take in, again, the lights and the color and the presence in the lobby. Take in the wonder of the families that will receive these gifts and all of the love that went into them. Take in the possibility of living your life from an unconditional place that doesn't demand that you be in the inn or Nazareth. Take in and absorb this spirit of Christmas. And now, realize this is the gift that you have been given, because this is the gift that you are. There is no limitation for you. You can be that Christmas for someone else. You can be that light, that gift, that present. You can be that wonder. You can spark that in someone else. You can be that light to the world, the joy to the world, the peace on earth and the goodwill. You could be that. I am the Christmas for someone else. I am the present. I am the gift. Behold, I am the handmaid of the Lord. Let it be done unto me as you have said. Thank you, God. Thank you, dear Spirit. And now we take a deep breath and we let it out. And we let go of anything in our hands, so we don't need any papers, because this is the moment. This is the moment. And we just imagine in this moment what it was like walking in and seeing all those presents. And imagining for a moment that there are children who are going to receive those presents. But more than that, the love that was placed in those presents by the people who gave them. The light, the love, the joy. And again, taking another deep breath and setting aside all papers and just letting out this spirit of Christmas. And in this moment, we take in and absorb Christmas. We absorb the lights. We absorb the presents. We absorb the love that was shared by all those who place so much good energy and thought in what they're giving to these children. We take it in because we want something to give. Before you can give a Christmas present, you have to shop for it. And we are here now, receiving what we are to give. So we're taking it in, absorbing it into our whole beingness, the energy in the life of Christmas, the vibration and the spirit of Christmas, the goodwill, the love of Christmas, the expanding beyond the boundaries that is Christmas, the unfamiliar good pleasure of the divine that is Christmas, being loved and supported and nurtured right where we are, being accepted and acceptable and greatly loved and cherished. And we now, with Mary, surrender into this experience. We surrender to it. I am the handmaid of the Lord. Let it be done unto me as you have said. We just let go into the experience of Christmas. We let go of that part of ourselves that says, I'm okay with change as long as I can control it. And we move into that change that has no stops, no limits, no anything. We're willing to get on that donkey and travel to a far country. We're willing to leave the safety and security of the inn to the stable where it's mysterious and dark. We're ready to move into something new because we know something's going to be birthed in us. A new experience. What is that experience for you that can be birthed? A greater sense of peace of mind. An inner tingle of joy in your heart, a willingness to reach across the chasm to another need in the soul. What is this birth that needs to take place in you? It creates a womb-like space, an opening in you, a place of possibility which you embrace with your whole being. And you let go into it. Behold, I am the handmaid of the Lord. Let it be done unto me as you have said. Create an opening in your heart, opening in your mind, opening in your soul. And rest for a while in that womb-like space with anticipation. Every person in this room deserves a Christmas experience. Everyone in this room deserves a spiritual awakening. Everyone deserves upliftment and light and love. And so we give that gift. Even as we have absorbed this energy and vibration and light and love, so we give it forth, first to the people who are here, and then out into our worlds, maybe to somebody that we have in mind. And now to somebody that we wouldn't have in mind unless I suggest it. And they come to mind. Full of grace, the Lord is with thee. The energy and the life and the vibration of this spiritual season is upon us. Thank you, God. And so now we're going to bless our offerings with the spirit of Christmas. So I give in the spirit of Christmas and I receive in the spirit of Christmas. Together. I give in the spirit of Christmas and I receive in the spirit of Christmas. And silently. And again aloud together. I give in the spirit of Christmas and I receive in the spirit of Christmas. And so it is. Amen.